This conference will now be recorded.
Hi everyone. Today we're talking about emotional investment versus enmeshment or boundary crossing. So some issues that come up in the fields that we're in often surround the fact that we want to help the client succeed, and over time we start to feel as if our involvement is necessary for their success. Everyone likes the validation of feeling needed, feeling competent at what they do. We're all good at what we do and we all care, and that's why we're in the profession we're in. But there are boundaries, and those we really need to talk about, because crossing those boundaries, not only does it hurt the client, but it hurts us professionally and personally as well. So in saying that, we care about what we do and we're in our roles for the client. We want to provide the service that's needed and wanted. We provide quality service. And in the process of providing those services, we develop professional rapport. And that relationship supports client success. It's also just the foundation that we work with. And our foundation for providing services and care it's in compassion. And often when boundaries are crossed or we become over-invested, that's when it can get to the point of experiencing compassion fatigue, which we can talk about later on. But compassion is the foundation for everything we do, and it's why we come back each day. Without it, we wouldn't be able to do our jobs well. We're also emotionally invested for the agency. When we feel secure in our role and feel that we're doing a good job, we acknowledge how that helps the agency, and we acknowledge the support that we get from the agency to do a good job and to be a part of that. The goals of the agency in my job are also my goals. My goals are the goals of the agency. And so that relationship supports my success. So the other investment that we have emotionally in our jobs is to ourselves. We want ourselves taken care of. We want to take care of ourselves financially. We want to take care of ourselves physically. And we want our interests supported. And often that's why we work, because financially we're allowed to do that. So we also tend to go into fields of work that support our interests. If we like people, we're going to tend to get into people-related areas or services. And so keeping that in mind, and just knowing that our own investment, not only in ourselves, but in the agency and in the client, are all what drives what we do. So when we cross professional boundaries are such that as a staff member, there will always be a power differential, always. You'll never be without that. You will never be on what I've heard one staff say, the same level as the client. Number one, as a provider, that difference will always occur. So you can never be their friend. You are not their parent. You are not their peer. Okay? There's a provider and there's a consumer. There's a staff and there is a client. Automatically, people have challenged me with this by giving me a picture of stairs, that the provider is here and the client is here, and that's not what I'm saying at all. Okay, it's not a hierarchy. Okay, it's a differential. Okay, it doesn't make one person more than or less than. That's not what we're talking about here. So as a staff member, I have a role. If I clearly know my role, I am better able to express that freely and easily to the client. which automatically will reinforce the boundaries that are necessary. Okay. Things like that very blatantly have come out in some recent meetings have been clients wanting to show physical affection. I am not a proponent of physical affection, but I know as a therapist that some therapists hug their clients. I personally believe that a handshake is appropriate. Some people don't want any physical contact at all. I think that the boundaries are tested every time some type of physical contact comes into it. And I just personally don't think that it's always appropriate. There are situations that we're all going to come into where someone is emotionally upset or in crisis, but that's going to be a judgment call. And certainly rules do not apply all the way across the board. So when we talk about boundary crossing or what they call enmeshment, when it happens is often when the power differential, the staff-client relationship, the provider-consumer relationship, when it is denied, when it's ignored, when it's minimized, or when it doesn't occur, when someone comes in as a peer. When I say that it is absent, the one time I have seen this is when a provider came into a situation with a new client and the new client was a friend from the past. Okay. Automatically, all bets were off because that relationship preceded any professional engagement. But the power differential did not occur because those people were friends first. So at that point, the appropriate request would be automatically for that person to be served by another staff. Okay, because objectivity just wasn't possible. So often when we invest in the care of a client and a person is making progress, we may hear it's because of what you do for me that helps me succeed. Okay, and that makes us feel good. That can make us feel good. We're all human. We want to do well. One thing that really needs to be at the forefront of everyone's thought is that the client's success is because of what the client chooses to work with and what the client chooses to do. We are a resource, okay? We are a resource for change by the example we set. We're a resource for change through the client picking up the services that we provide and utilizing the services we provide, okay? And one thing that holds true no matter where a client is in the change process is that they do not ever have to continue making change. They can always choose not to make change. That's a choice all of us have. Often frustration is voiced from staff when a client may regress or may stop doing productive activity, and staff will maybe, what do I have to do to get them to? Well, by providing support to someone, maybe pointing out the beneficial things that you observed when those changes were being made, but always keeping in mind that that person, I have to honor their decision not to make any change at all. Okay. When I start personalizing it to me, either that it's because of me that the good happened, or it's because of me that the bad is coming, or it's because of me that the progress is stopping, or it's because of me, and I don't mean in totality, but I mean it's a piece of me in this, that's when we're over the line. And that's hard to swallow because, again, what we do, we feel good about what we do. We want to be an agent of change, okay? And so the more I think I am responsible for your success, the more I am also going to feel like I am responsible for your failure, when neither one is truly mine. Okay? Someone who is a provider and an ethical provider cannot be a friend. It's just not possible. An ethical provider and a top-notch service provider needs to be objective, and a friend is not subjective. Okay. We are not there to parent. A parent cannot be objective. Okay. We care for our clients, but their progress and their movement and their change is going to be up to them. Okay. Just like any one of us. If someone makes a suggestion to me to make a change, it will not happen until I intentionally make that change for myself. Okay. It's not because of anyone else that I made it. They may have planted a seed where I start thinking about making the change, but the actual change is mine. Okay. So with clients, one thing that I always think of is that if you're going to say or do anything, if you're going to say something to a client, if you're going to do anything with a client, if there is any hesitation whether or not you would do the same thing in front of another client, in front of a staff, or in front of your family, don't do it. Okay? Because if a client says to me, oh, tell me about maybe some personal information. Okay, if one of your coworkers was standing in the room, and you think, well, if they were standing in the room, I wouldn't tell them because they think I was, maybe telling too much or whatever, then don't tell it. If there's any hesitation to say or do anything with a client, don't do it. Listen to your gut feeling. There are clients, and we talked in a prior training about antisocial personality disorder. We also talked about borderline personality disorder. One thing to really, really keep in mind is that personality features can contribute to the type of boundary crossing that occurs. Okay. Boundary crossing can be everything from buying a client something at the grocery store, soda at the grocery store, to becoming involved in an intimate relationship. I mean, it's along a whole spectrum. Okay. Sometimes the boundary crossing is that I stayed awake all night long worrying about this person, and I lost sleep, and so my health suffers. That is also a type of boundary crossing. Okay, that's at my expense. So when we take work home, there's a type of what they call enmeshment that has occurred, and then the lines are blurred. Okay. And that's when it can be really, really unhealthy. One thing that a couple of us have talked about is the importance of having something outside of this that is solely yours. What do you like to do? Do you like to take a walk? Do you like to ride a bike? Do you take care of yourself physically? The less healthy I am physically, the more vulnerable I am emotionally. And it's intrinsically linked. It's connected. So one thing to keep in mind is that your job and your role with the client, it's not about you, but it's about two people. The outcome is about the client, but it's going to be in the hands of the client. Okay. I can support my client's success. I am not responsible for my client's success. One of the hard things is that often we have to let people fail to get them the help they need. And if we take care of them, often we might kind of pull a blinder, and it may not be as apparent, what the problems are because we caretake. So that can really be a barrier to change. If my expectation of a client is that they learn independent living skills, but I continue to do things for them, I'm blocking their opportunity to make that successful change. I'm blocking that, okay? A general rule is, and I say this for clients across the board, whether it's inpatient, outpatient, group home setting, supported apartment, is that I can stand beside you while you do something, but I will not do something that you can do for yourself. I will not do something you are able to do for yourself. Because if I do, I enable you to do less. Okay? And then you may come to expect it of me. Okay. So again, I just need to say that you're not responsible for the client's success. You're not responsible for the client's failure, but you are an agent in both, in the picture of both. Okay. One of the biggest things that will take somebody out of a position if boundaries are not watched is mental health problems in a profession like this. Anxiety, depression, alcoholism, or drug use are directly linked to the problematic situations that occur within a position when boundary violations occur. Okay, the anxiety goes up, the stress goes up, the frustration tolerance goes down. Okay? And then it's going to be reflected not only in my personal life, but in the care I provide. And so a red flag often is when a person's statements about their job and about clients becomes more about their needs than the client's needs. A person might get angry at a client because they didn't get up for medication, and it's about my inconvenience. Okay, it's about my inconvenience, and so I get angry. Or it's about me. If a client does not follow through on something, and I'm questioning, did I do a good job? And then all of a sudden it's reflecting on my self-esteem. There's a red flag right there too. Again, it's not about you. Okay. Skipping back just to talk about affection and things just a bit. There are people in every position, people-oriented, care-oriented or not, that come in with personal issues. Okay. This is not the place to have voids filled. Okay. When someone's self-esteem is defined by what they do, it can get extremely unhealthy. Okay. When validation comes from almost solely the clients that I serve, and that's how I feel good about myself, that is problematic. Okay. When a client wants to give me a hug at the end of a good counseling session and I think, oh boy, I needed that just as much as they did, red flag. Okay. If it goes over to the issue of power and control, that's what is driving my workday, that is also a boundary crossing. Okay. Anything that you do has to be ethical, respectable, legal. Okay. And if it's not, then we've got some problems. Just as in every relationship we have boundaries. Okay. If I am a new employee, I'm going to have a very clear boundary with my supervisor. But as we get to know people, those boundaries may soften a little bit. But there is still the power differential between supervisor and line employee. Okay. And so keeping that on the radar at all times, that power differential is going to be really, really important. One thing to really talk to ourselves about is sometimes it takes convincing of ourselves that we really can't make anyone do anything. We can't. It's not in our control. And that can drive a person's angst at a job like this stronger than, I mean, so strong, where they need to see the light. They need to see that this is best for them, or I'm going to show them, or I can prove it to them that they'd be better off. And it's not your role. We cannot make anyone do anything.
We just had a really good example at Berry House in that we had a very engaging young man, very personable, very motivated to get a job, but he also needed to learn to do budgeting and some other things, and he absolutely refused to do those things. And it seemed like because everybody saw the potential in him, they had a lot invested in him, and it was almost like you could see staff morale go down because it was all based on, we know this guy can do it, but he's not doing it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, he did get discharged, and of course, he is, I don't know if he's still maintaining his job because his drug use has just increased. So it's a matter of time before he resurfaces in the system. But it was very hard. You could see the correlation.
It is really hard. It is really hard. And we're in our jobs because we care about people. You know, if we did not care, we would have no business being here. But that is also what can turn around to bite you as well. You know, so by keeping that, the fact that I need to own what I do, but that person owns what they do. You know, that's what's really, really important. I'm going to go back just a minute to listen to your gut feeling. You know, if you're going to do something for a client and your gut tells you, I would really listen to that. And it goes back to don't do for yourself what someone else can do for themselves. Don't do for them what they can do for themselves. When we start to think that we can fix someone, it's no longer about them. Then it's about us. Okay. And it's hard because if someone makes choices that sabotage their success or halt progress, or, you know, that's hard for us to see because we care. And so, but if I can honestly own that I am not responsible for anyone else's change, it can really kind of take a load off as well. You know, it can really make my job easier because I don't have the weight of another life on my shoulders. Okay. I have a service I provide. Okay. What that person does with the services I provide is up to them. And if I can honestly own that and believe that, then my job will be easier. Okay. So just in talking about clients, even today in supervision, you know, many issues come up. And so I'm going to use an example that came up today. So a woman would not be happy about riding a bus. Okay. And there's a lot of different reasons why not. Maybe she doesn't want to be around people. Maybe she sees the bus as beneath her. Maybe, you know, she doesn't want to walk outside to get to it. Or maybe there are mental health issues with the space, you know, with being in that close proximity with people. There's a variety of things that could happen. However, in order to overcome any barrier like that, a person needs to expose themselves to the stressor. Okay. So one of the staff said, well, I'd give her a ride to work. And I suggested, well, maybe if you're going to give her a ride to work, what if she rides the bus to work every other time? Or you pick her up, you meet her at the bus. I don't know what the role was of the staff, but when we assume responsibility for someone's day-to-day success, and let's use a job, that's a really good example. Well, she won't get to work unless I take her. Well, if you got hit by a bus tomorrow and you weren't here, how would she get to work? Can she walk? What resources does she have? There's always resources. That means that her job is my responsibility now, if I make it my responsibility. Okay. It goes back to do not do for someone what they can do for themselves. But if there is change that needs to occur to get, just like when we work with people who are trying to gain independence, we walk beside them as they become, and we watch them become more independent. It doesn't mean you just abandon someone, However, you need to know your place, and you need to know what's appropriate to do and what's not. What is helping and what is enabling. Okay, and that's going to be different with each case as they come down the pipe, because clients are different. But really, really carefully think about why this is being done. Is it helping or is it hurting? Okay. Sometimes loving what you do means doing it somewhere differently. Okay. And so if you find that you're in a position where you are just emotionally shot, maybe you need to just own it and look for a different area or a different function, or there's no shame in saying, hey, is there a possibility I can move into this? Is there a possibility I can move? It doesn't mean I have to quit and leave. It just means that I need to reassess and relook at things. So don't be afraid to say, I'm at my top. I need some support for something different. That is really, really important, because that's what will keep you there. Using my example at Winnebago, the only reason I was able to stay there for 30 years is because I was able to change the people, places, and things that I did. Okay. But I had to ask for that opportunity. I could have been stuck in the rabbit hole and I wouldn't have lasted, I don't think, 10 years. And as I went along through the years, yeah, you make mistakes. There was a training we did right at the beginning when someone said, I bet you made a lot of mistakes, with boundaries and when you first started. And I said, yeah, and 30 years later, I just made different ones. It's not that you're never going to make the mistakes, but if you learn and you adjust and you ask for what you need, the picture is going to change. The more independent I am, knowing that I do not make changes for my client, the more present I'm going to be able to be for my client. Okay? Because then it's about them. And if I can be present and intentional with my client, my level of care is going to increase tenfold. So just backing up just a little bit, when I mentioned, people's personal issues and, kind of blurring the screen and everything. If you part of holding good boundaries is being honest. And if you don't know something or you're not in a position to address something, say so. Okay? If you're not qualified to address something, say so. Too often, wanting to provide good care, we make up answers. And it's all well intended. okay? But it's okay to say, I don't know, or that's not my role, or I will find out for someone who can help you with that. But when we try to take on things that are not ours to take on, that starts blurring things again, okay? So in one of the meetings we had at Wapaka, we were talking about reading our job descriptions. And the reason I originally brought that up is because if we know our job description, we know where the initial grid and where the lines are. Okay, this is my job. Okay, so you know the foundation of where you come from, and then everything else builds off of that. And so when a client says, well, or may say, I need you to, okay, that be careful how quickly you answer those kind of, I call that a demand. That's not a request. A demand is, I need you to. A request is, would you be able to help me with? Okay, so listen to the language that's being said too. And the reason I use that example is because if I just had a fight with my spouse and I came into work and a client came up to me and said, I need you to, that can be all it takes to be like, the hell you do. And that can start my day off terrible. That can start the client's day off terrible. Okay.
Oh, I got one client that did that quite often.
I mean, those kind of triggers, I mean, you need to listen to those. You really need to pay attention that those are there every day. And so at the beginning of each workday, when I started in corrections, I had the sergeant who trained me say that you have 2 goals every day that will never change. He said, that's to come to work with your personal life at home, and it's to leave work and to not bring it into your personal life. And it's hard to do, okay? Because it's all who we are, okay? But that has been one of the most valuable lessons I think that I've had in all my years working there. You know, and there were some days where I actually visually thought about taking my workday and setting it at the door when I walked out, or taking my home life and setting it at the door before I walked out, you know. And by really visualizing those kind of boundaries, that's where it begins. Okay. When those two become really blurred, neither one, both lose its top value. Both lose its top value. So, so keep that in mind. So, questions, comments, scenarios?
I guess I would just make the point of what you're saying is not all or nothing.
It is not.
So it's really about, okay, if you want that client to be independent, it's not that you're gonna do for them what they can do for themselves, but you might do it with them until they get it done.
Absolutely.
Because people do not, if they're just told what to do, they will not do it. And I always say the other equivalent is people's rooms are like what's in their head. So
Right.
sometimes, especially with cleaning, it's you do this, or which choice would you like? These are our 2 options, and then do it with, and then they'll get a sense of accomplishment when they get something done. And then you can continue to build on that.
Absolutely.
Not black and white, yes and no.
Right, exactly. Yeah, we just talked about that this morning. You know, teaching a client to clean by having her do it with her, you know, and then she learns the proper way rather than doing it for her and then it becomes her job. Yeah, absolutely. Other thoughts, questions? Okay.